We started statement 15, or kind of briefly anticipated statement 15 of chapter 6. So remembering again, like statement 14 says, what is the Mahamudra state? The Mahamudra state, whether on the level of ground, of the path, or of the result, they are. It is the embodiment of all the Buddha qualities. So the idea that in the Mahamudra state nothing can exist, and including even qualities, cannot exist, is considered a misunderstanding. So because the nature, the essence of Mahamudra are these Buddha qualities. Then 15 says, and all these qualities, they arise from meditative equipoise. They arise from this state of meditative equipoise. This is addressing basically the same issue. Here, the slight variation here is rather than just generally saying, in Mahamudra there is no virtue, there is no non-virtue, rather than that context, here is more technical. Here it has to do with, and some of you are familiar with this and some of you are not, I know, but I know many of you, again, if you have been well educated in Kasa Tibet, you will know these terms, at least the terms you would recognize, which is, there are these two stages called the meditative stage and then post-meditation, or the subsequent stage. So this is very common saying, like for example, bodhisattvas, on the first bhumi, second bhumi, third bhumi, so on and so forth, they are able to maintain and realize, maintain, realize basically emptiness, genuine realization of emptiness, and they can keep and maintain this general realization as long as they remain, their mind remains settled, meaning remain in the meditative state. Then this realization is stable, unmoving. But the moment they leave this meditative state, which is then called the subsequent, the post-meditation state, then even though, right, their realization of emptiness is there, but it is now in the background, so to say. I mean, they don't use the expression background. I'm just using something simple, that we can relate to. So that realization kind of goes into the background. And of course, they are protected from all the coarse mental defilements now. All the coarse mental defilements have been destroyed when you realize at the first bhumi, you have a realization of emptiness, the coarse obscurations, the coarse mental defilements are removed. But still there's a separation between the meditative state and the post-meditative state. So it is in this context, that there were some who says, when you are in the meditative state, here meditative equipoise, it's the word in Sanskrit is not samadhi. Samadhi is sometimes also translated as meditative equipoise, but the more accurate word that meditative equipoise translates in Tibetan is called nyamshak. Nyamshak is samahita. Samahita has a connotation of being able to place the mind in this state of sama, sameness, evenness. So there were some during Kyobpa's time that says, and in the commentary it says, there were some who arrive at this other position, this other view, from an academic scholarly point of view. They've looked at many sutras, they've looked at many commentaries, and they say, when the mind is in the state of samahita, absorbed in the realization of emptiness, no Buddha qualities is present. Some even say, this realization of emptiness is a state of realizing mere emptiness. Like meaning all mental defilements are gone. And nothing else is there. Because mental defilements are gone, then that's it. Then the commentary said even some meditators, they kind of feel this way. So they arrive at this same conclusion, kind of, according to Kyobpa, a mistaken conclusion, that when the mind is really focused on emptiness, then it's just a mere absence of anything and everything. Of course, they don't stop there. What they say is, now when the mind emerges from that state, then the Buddha qualities turn up. So they say the Buddha qualities only turn up afterwards. So this is a little technical, yes. I think for you and me, we're not there at that level, But the bigger issue here, whether you and I are anywhere close to having these kind of experiences, the bigger issue is still addressing the issue of whether you call it Mahamudra, ground, basis, path, process, result, or you look at it from the perspective of emptiness. It is mistaken, it is a mistaken view that emptiness is just mere emptiness. Emptiness is empty of afflictive emotions, empty of mental defilements, but not empty of Buddha qualities, if it is genuine emptiness. So if it is genuine emptiness, even when the mind is absorbed in an even state of realization of emptiness, not only does it not prevent Buddha qualities from arising, Buddha qualities arise stronger and stronger and stronger. In fact, beyond 8th Bhumi, it said that what happens is, as you go through from the 1st to the 10th Bhumi and then the 11th Bhumi of Buddhahood, your ability to remain in the meditative state becomes greater and greater and greater. So that at the point of Buddha, there is no more, division between meditation and post-meditation. Elsewhere we see this reference a lot, where meditation and post-meditation is no longer divided. So in other words, Buddhas are constantly in the same state of being. And in that same state of being, their realization of emptiness doesn't go into the background or come in the foreground. Buddha qualities don't go to the background or come to the foreground. Foreground, background, all have been kind of become irrelevant now. So at all times, at all moments, Buddhas have simultaneous realization of emptiness and simultaneous display of Buddha qualities. So all qualities arise. Don't think of this meditative equipoise, mind resting in realization of emptiness. It's just a mere absence. Absence of afflictive emotions, absence of mental defilements, absence of thoughts, and also absence of Buddha qualities. It says, no, it's not like that. So 615, When the auspicious circumstances between guru and disciples are completely gathered and one has properly understood the pith instructions, one should rest one pointedly on their meaning in meditative equipoise. Because in doing so, it is certain that all the Buddha qualities will arise, such as equality towards the eight worldly concerns. So that is a quality, which is like attachment to friends and aversion to enemies. And so on, during post-meditation and authentic loving compassion for others. I'm not sure what this is, this translation here a little bit. From this, it is certain that all qualities arise, such as equality towards the eight worldly concerns, that is, attachment to friends and aversion to enemies, and so on, during post-meditation. Not sure if something is missing there. It seems a little strange. And so on during post-meditation. And authentic loving compassion for others. Shantideva said, understanding that calm abiding, fully endowed with insight, fully overcomes mental afflictions, one should first make an effort in calm abiding. This is accomplished by those who truly enjoy unattachment to the world. We read this yesterday. Yeah? When there's no discriminative wisdom, there's no concentration. And so here, Khenpo Kunpal's commentary particularly brings together the calm abiding and insight, saying that calm abiding and insight, they don't, there's no like competition going on. That the mind is calmly abiding, and then more so abiding in a state of realization of emptiness. It doesn't obstruct the arising of insight, the arising of Buddha qualities. Now, if we look at Chodra's commentary, again from this larger volume, so 615, let me read from there. I think a little clearer, I think. Since the root of roaming in samsara is grasping of self, grasping onto self, the beings, because they accumulate the blessings of the guru who possesses the characteristics and the abilities, the realizations, and the dependent origination of the disciples with genuine devotion. So then beings abandon this grasping at self, through the vital points of the instructions given. And so once realization of emptiness, which is here called abandoning grasping at self, once realization of emptiness occurs, then to remain in such a state is called meditative equipoise, samahita. At the time when they arise from that, the subsequent consciousness is the arising of mental afflictions and conceptions. So, not yet, on the Bodhisattva Bhumi. So, this is describing, at the beginning, when through the Guru's instructions, through your great merit, you're able to perceive, realize emptiness, abandon attachment to self, then you remain there to habituate that realization. But then when you get up, at the time when they arise from that meditative equipoise, then the remainder mental afflictions and conceptions, will come back into play. So that first explains it this way. The quality of maintaining meditative equipoise is such that they finally obtain the path of seeing. So he says, then you keep going until you arrive at the path of seeing, which is the first Bodhisattva Bhumi. So in other words, especially before you achieve first Bodhisattva Bhumi, you should remain, you should spend more time habituating that realization. Otherwise, because the minute you leave your meditation, then because you're not yet on the first bhumi especially, a lot of the coarse mental defilements will come back. So the quality of maintaining meditative equipoise is such that they finally obtain, meaning the benefit of maintaining meditative equipoise is such that you will finally obtain the path of seeing. The 12 sets of 100 qualities and so forth then arises. So this is a classic description. When you achieve the first bhumi, 12 sets of 100 qualities arise. And from that again, finally attain the Buddhahood that accomplishes the twofold purposes. That meaning, if you keep going from there, the qualities will just increase. So Lord Pamadrupa said, 10-stage bodhisattvas are possessors of the quality of dwelling without the arising of mind. So here, quoting Pamadrupa, says, and finally the greatest quality, that is then achieved at the 10th bhumi is that mind no longer arises, meaning here, conceptual mind, confused mind. So here in Chodrat's statement, in Chodrat's commentary, it's a little different from Khenpo Kunpal. Khenpo Kunpal somehow takes it in the direction of the relationship between samatha and vipassana. In Chodrat's commentary, he is focusing more, I would say, like kind of the original meaning of this statement, why Kyobpa Rinpoche made this statement, which is that, the realization of emptiness should not be seen as merely the removal of mental defilements. And this is a strong, there's a strong kind of history to this, because in a way you could say, like now I'm speaking, kind of wearing my, PhD in Buddhism hat. The history of Buddhism as a tradition is that, for the most part, the Buddha tend to use the language of negation. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is the Buddha begins with what we know now. And what we know now is confusion. What we know now is suffering. Yeah? So you could say that it's not so much that the Buddha likes to use the way of negation, but it's simply begin with what you know now. What you now know, without me needing to prove to you too much, right? You now know and recognize samsara. You may not know the word, but all the characteristics of samsara, you recognize and you know you don't want. Like, this sucks. We all get it, So then, Buddha says, well, if you don't want this, you can end this. So, negation. You can end this. And this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Put an end to this. And why can you put an end? How can you put an end to this? How do you know it's possible to put an end to this? Because whatever has a beginning has an end. Whatever was put together by conditions, by circumstances, will expire. So he primarily just used this approach, which, some people might say, oh, it's a negative approach, but it's not a negative approach. It's basically beginning with what you and I, don't need a lot of convincing, we get. So he says, well, with regards to that, remove. Right? Now, because of that, so the tradition tends to take this approach of only speaking in terms of removing. But that has led to some scholars, some philosophers within the Buddhist family developing theories and ideas that in some ways, you could say, go too far in the direction of the whole goal and the whole purpose is just empty, not. negate, 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 negate. In part, that has to do with Buddhists in India were surrounded by Hindus in India. And Hindus, not all of them, but some of them, because even within the Hindu family, there are those who use the language of negating, and then there are those who use the language of affirming. There is, especially those who are God-based traditions. There is a God. God is like this, like this, like this, like this. God has this quality, this quality, this quality, this quality. So the Buddhists, in order to distinguish, to make more clearly how their view or their understanding is different from Hindus, some got carried away into negating, 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 until it seems like, oh, Buddhas, you cannot say Buddhas have qualities, because to have qualities is to be conditioned. And since Buddhas are unconditioned, so we don't say Buddhas have qualities. Now, how did they get around? Well, then what was Shakyamuni doing walking around? Wasn't it because of his qualities of wisdom, qualities of compassion, that he, changed so many people? Those who say that, there are ultimately no qualities in the Buddha state, they will say those qualities are just seemingly. It's just sentient beings are perceiving that the Buddhas have qualities. But not really. I would say that even with Kyobpa Rinpoche, he will in the end say, yes, of course, it's illusory. But everything is illusory nature. It's not that Buddha qualities are more illusory than anything else. But as long as we are in this realm of illusory relative existence, I think here, I feel is where it's worth thinking about. Since we are operating in a relative realm, in the relative context, better we pay attention to what is more helpful in this relative context than to speculate and on ultimately. And so I think this theme, some of you may have noted already, which is that more important, Buddha gave teachings to those of us who are in this relative realm, or at least stuck with the delusion of this relative realm. He did not give the teachings for those who have already graduated or abandoned confusion. So that's why no need to talk so much about ultimately. Because after all, whatever we say about ultimately is mistaken. Right? So here, this point of how all these qualities arise from meditative equipoise have a very direct take-home lesson, so to say, which is don't do your meditation as an escape, Just mind is calm, or even mind is, expansive, wow, and just kind of like in this wow state, oh, feels so good. But see that, in doing meditation, in cultivating the mind, we are cultivating the Buddha qualities. We are bringing forth the Buddha qualities. How do you bring forth positive qualities, qualities that result in happiness? We remove mental defilements. So mind is empty of essence, but it's not empty of clarity. Buddhahood is empty of defilements, empty of negative karma, but not empty of Buddha qualities. Okay. That's it for this week. Sublime, precious, venerable, and glorious root and lineage gurus, assembly of Idam deities, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas dwelling in the 10 directions, assemblies of Viras, Viranis, Yoginis, and Dakinis, please heed me. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and the inherent root of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly dharmas and the 4 causes of samsara and the resultant states of hearers and solitary realizers. And may all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, particularly those enemies who hate us, obstruct us, who harm, those who create obstacles, maras who mislead, and their mara retinues, have happiness, be separated from suffering, and quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, and precious Bodhi. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may we benefit sentient beings with body, speech, and mind. May the afflictive thoughts of attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise in my mind stream. May thoughts of name, fame, gain, respect, and so forth in this life not arise for even a moment. With my mind stream moistened by love, compassion, and bodhicitta, may I come under the care of virtuous spiritual friends, and having become as limitless as space, may I achieve the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life, by the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.